Can you imagine being on a flight to work and suddenly encountering 9 UFOs at supersonic speeds? June 24, 1947. We are talking about one of the most important sightings in the history of ufology. Kenneth Arnold claimed to have seen a line of 9 mysterious flying objects that were flying around Mount Rainier at speeds exceeding 1,900 kilometers per hour. The objects had a peculiar and high-intensity glow. After World War II, Kenneth's sighting was the first in the U.S. to receive full national news coverage, making it the first UFO sighting in the modern era. But what Americans didn't realize was that it was only the beginning of 3 more weeks of strange sightings. 3 weeks full of tension, uncertainty, and multiple unanswered questions. Before the event experienced by Kenneth on June 24, 1947, the terms flying saucers and UFOs had not yet entered the popular vocabulary. So we could say that during that afternoon, a part of the world changed thanks to Kenneth Arnold. Mankind has always looked to the skies for meaning, but as our yearning for knowledge has reached farther into the depths of space, the search becomes for the answer of the question, are we alone? If you seek the truth, like, subscribe, click the bell icon, join us. This is what the world needs. This is disclosure. The belief in the existence of extraterrestrial encounters has been, through time, one of the most prominent features of life in the United States. There was even a survey conducted in 1997 for the anniversary of the enigmatic Roswell UFO, in which 80% of Americans surveyed thought that the government was indeed carrying out strategies to keep the existence of extraterrestrial life a secret. Today, there are thousands of sightings of strange flying objects that have been reported, where the vast majority have been declared unexplainable by the U.S. government itself. As the years go by and the sightings increase, is the U.S. ignoring the mysterious flying objects? Or are they in a very slow process of acceptance, now that the Pentagon acknowledges the existence of unexplained flying objects? Navy spokesman Joe Gradisher claims that UFOs make up a fraction of the sightings reported by soldiers and pilots. Which begs the question, are we really alone? Well, for Kenneth Arnold in 1947, these doubts were answered before anyone even began asking the question. UFOs exist, and they are here watching us. Arnold reports that it was a beautiful day with enough sunshine to see everything clearly, but it would all turn out differently later. Arnold was flying from Chehalis to Yakima, but in mid-flight, he decided to look for a C-46 Marine transport that had crashed on the southwest side of Mount Rainier. It was 3 p.m. when suddenly an extremely bright flash illuminated the entire surrounding sky, including every part of the aircraft. Arnold didn't know what was happening. At first, he thought it was just the sun's reflections coming in from other unexpected angles. But to his surprise, the incredible flash happened again, and it was then that Arnold could see where the rays of light were coming from. Arnold was paralyzed for a moment. He was simply doing everything he could to keep the plane in flight while watching one of the most incredible and inexplicable experiences of his life. Spontaneously, intense beams of light came from a row of 9 circular airplanes in the vicinity of Mount Rainier. According to Kenneth Arnold, the strange objects had no tails and left no jet trail behind them. The instant he observed them, Arnold believed that because of their sizes of at least 100 feet, they were some type of new experimental missiles. In the midst of the incident, Arnold observed a large clock on his instrument panel, with which he measured the distances traveled by the mysterious craft. To his surprise, the spacecraft had traveled the distance between Mount Rainier and Mount Adams in just 1 minute and 42 seconds. In short, the objects were flying at a speed of more than 2,800 kilometers per hour, which was almost unbelievable. From Yakima, Arnold then flew to an air show in Pendleton, Oregon. Then, the next day, June 25th, he took the time to stop by the local newspaper called the East Oregonian. Arnold simply wanted to confirm whether the country's armed forces were testing experimental fighter planes in the area. At this point, he found a chance to talk with reporter Bill Biquette, who in later years would remember Arnold as level-headed, honest, and above all, credible. Neither of them imagined what they were about to face. As Biquette listened to Arnold's story, he decided to create a brief history of each of the details the man had witnessed. But it all got out of hand. The story was also sent to the Associated Press, where newspapers would seize on the story. The furor started, and for the first time in history, every single media outlet began to use the term flying saucers. And you may ask, what did the US government think about what happened? Well, due to the exponential increase of sightings after the incident experienced by Arnold, the Air Force conducted a thorough investigation of each of the reports through the SIGN program in 1948. By this time, there were two options. Either it was the Soviets, or it was something much more unexplained, such as alien spacecraft. However, the Air Force investigators, despite considering Arnold a credible witness, dismissed the investigation by stating that what he had seen were only mirages, not flying craft. By the time the Mount Rainier incident occurred, everyone was suspicious of what Arnold had seen. For him, the news that he was being labeled a madman hurt. Arnold claims that he didn't consider himself any kind of crackpot, and that in fact, there were more than 4,000 hours of high-altitude flight time to back that up. Not only that, but they also affirmed his skills and abilities to spot foreign objects in the skies. I had been the subject of ridicule, much waste of time and money, notoriety in newspapers, magazine articles, reflections on my history, my character, my business dealings, Arnold wrote in his 1952 book, Coming of the Saucers. Arnold, after all, was an unlikely candidate to find himself embroiled in such controversy that he surpassed anything he could have imagined. He lived in Meridian, Idaho, and sold firefighting equipment. The most unusual thing his life became was that he flew a small plane to reach his customers in the Northwest. A month after Arnold was in the news across the country, a secret report in 1947 by counterintelligence officer Frank M. Brown stated that Kenneth Arnold was wrong and should be writing fiction books. Today, that secret report is declassified. This was one of the few sympathetic representations in government documents of the Arnold sighting. In another declassified intelligence report in July 1947, First Lieutenant Hal L. Eustace of the Army Air Corps listed Arnold's report as part of the silly season episodes. As can be seen, every detail noted by Arnold was ignored, as if he had just made it all up. Are we pushing the truth aside just because we don't want to accept it? The truth is that the same lieutenant who accused him of having created the silly season claimed that Kenneth was extremely reasonable and balanced, and that he had no apparent ulterior motive for making things up. What happened affected Arnold deeply, to the point of stating the following: "If I ever saw a 10-story building flying through the air, I would never say a word about it." All because he was ignored and ridiculed by the entire press, to such an extent that he was made to look like a madman in the eyes of the US population. Although the existence of sightings and reports of strange flying objects extends for hundreds of years prior to the 1940s, World War II was a before and after for the UFO subject. Unbeknownst to us, we had apparently drawn the attention of hundreds of strange beings that have flown over our skies ever since. Arnold's incredible sighting in 1947, together with one of the most important and publicized UFO events in history as the Roswell case in New Mexico, planted an insatiable interest in the investigation of visitors from other worlds, and above all, established what we know today as ufology. Kenneth Arnold died in 1984 at the age of 68, and in all those years, he never wavered or doubted in his descriptions and every detail of what he had seen that day at the age of 32. Subsequently, after further studies, the analysts of the Army Armed Forces estimated the size of the object seen by Arnold at 85 meters, that is, 55 meters much larger than previously believed, all thanks to the analysis of human visual acuity and other sighting details, such as estimated distance. In a now declassified document, Air Force Materiel Command definitively wrote off what Arnold had witnessed. The report cannot withstand even cursory examination, therefore it must be disregarded. And another Air Force document concluded the objects in this sighting were due to a mirage. Long ago, in 1977, in an interview, Arnold clearly stated the following: "I made my report because I thought it was my duty. It was the only proper and American thing to do. I saw what I saw, and nothing can change that." Searching for answers is one of the greatest goals of our species, and together we have to work at it. Beyond prejudice, beyond ego, and beyond what we think is possible. After all, if someday the universe comes to give us an answer, it will probably be the one we least expect. What do you think about Arnold's sighting? Fact or fiction? Let us know in the comments.